Our presentation, as you can see from our slide and from my shirt, is on bicycles, transportation technology. So we're going to start out with kind of an overview. I guess we'll introduce everyone first. My name's Gabe Shigoda.
I'm Willie.
I'm Wanda K. Robinson.
Jeremy Brown.
And what we're going to be starting out with today is just kind of a basic overview. We're going to talk about the history of the bicycle, different types of bicycles, and then we're going to kind of look at a global perspective of riding, because there's a lot of different applications that people are using these for around the world. And then I'm going to be talking about current uses and some of the modern technology that goes into each bicycle around the world.
Okay, for history, it's kind of interesting. I didn't know anything that was going on with bicycles back then, but apparently the reason the bicycle came about was because of a famine that was created by a volcano. And so horses died, there was no transportation, and so people got creative. And the Draisine, which was, I don't have it on my sheet, was created by, I believe, a German. And as you can see here, there's no pedals or anything. You just sit on it and you kind of run with your feet. Not real comfortable. It did kind of close the gap, though. So people didn't have horses, so they'd use these instead. That was in 1817. So that was the first time we saw a bicycle. Next. All right. The treadle pedals. And this is also considered this picture here is considered a bone crusher bike. It's not very comfortable, and it's very hard on your bones. There's no real brakes. There's no safety features at all. It's just dangerous. And anyway, it's got treadle pedals that, as you can see here, you'd put your feet there, and it's kind of like an old-fashioned sewing machine where you just kind of go up and down. And that's what powers the sewing machine. Well, that's how you turn the wheel on this thing. That was around 1840, so a little over 20 years, and they invented pedals. And then this thing here, this is what probably a lot of people think is the initial bicycle. It's kind of what I thought it was. But this is called a penny farthing or a high wheel bike. But anyway, the high-wheeled bike lasted for about 20 years. It was called the Era, and it was more of a masculine bike, even though to me it doesn't really look like a masculine bike, but it was dangerous. It was the most dangerous bicycle out of anything that's ever been created. Apparently we're playing this. And they had races. Women didn't really ride them. Basically because women at that time were thought to be delicate and they couldn't show their legs, and because they wore a lot of dresses, they couldn't ride without the bicycle tearing up the dress. This guy, he's just kind of being a fool. I don't really know why he's doing what he's doing, but we're getting ready to see something pretty fantastic. This is kind of the explanation of why these are dangerous. So, there's really nowhere to go but forward and from really high. He wasn't, but even had he not had his feet up there, that was still going to happen. Let's see, what do we got next? The next bike is called the safety bicycle, and is probably what most people are seeing here is this kind of looks like a regular bicycle. This is around 1885, as we see here, made by Starley, and they actually did it right. So they got the seat the right place, they got the handlebar right place. It's actually got a brake. You can see it's got a sprocket, pedals, chain. Pretty much this was the standard. So after this, the rest of the bikes, this is their design. Who we got next here? Oh yes, still mine. The only thing that really needs to be talked about past the safety bike is the adaptation of multi-gear. And it just allowed, bicycle riders, I'm sure most of you have done this, to switch gear and either go up a hill or switch gears to go faster down the road. That's really about the extent of the history part of the presentation. Oh, I forgot. In the time that bicycles were being created and developed, there was many groups that got together, and they were riding in the city, urban environments. There were roads. They weren't the greatest of roads. However, there was no cars because cars hadn't been invented yet. So roads were basically just where you walked and had a social gathering. Bicyclists didn't like this, so they formed groups and clubs and kind of got some rules passed that forced pedestrians to walk on the side of the road, hence sidewalks. So, bicycles created sidewalks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to talk about the types of bicycles that we researched, just to give you a little bit of history on each of those. The first one is the track bike. The track bike is used for indoor and outdoor racetracks. Track bikes have only one gear and no free wheel or brakes. Tires on these bikes are narrow and inflated with high pressure to minimize rolling resistance. They're also designed to go fast. Road bikes. The road bikes are used primarily for paved roads and are often referred to as racing bikes. Similar to other bikes, they have a narrow, high pressure, and smooth tires to minimize rolling resistance. Now, mountain bikes, they're used for off-road cycling. They have wider tires, suspension systems. They may be used for traveling or racing over rocks, washouts, steep declines, dirt trails, logging roads, and other unpaved areas. The wheels are typically wide, knobby tires for traction and shock absorption. The BMX bikes are used for leisure and sport. They're yet primarily designed for dirt and motocross cycling. BMX is an abbreviation for bicycle motocross. Frames for these bikes are constructed of various types of steel. Those used for racing are usually constructed of aluminum, while cheaper bikes are made of steel. The BMX bikes can be used for racing, freestyle, dirt jumping, on flat land, streets, parks, or trails. The cruiser bikes or beach cruisers are durable and heavy. They have balloon tires, upright seating posture, single-speed drivetrain, and constructed of steel with animated styling. These were the most popular bikes in the United States from the 1930s to the 1950s. Since the 1990s, their popularity has increased due to their comfort, style, and affordability. And now, other reasons to ride.
All right. I know I'm not going to shock anybody here, but believe it or not, a bicycle is actually a little bit more environmentally friendly than some of the modes of transportation that we're used to. One of the studies that I came across was taken in California, and it was a statewide study, and they determined that if they could get people to ride a bicycle when they're running their short errands, which were consisted of 2 miles or less, then they came up with the following estimates that there would be 2,656,000 less miles traveled on the roads. So that's less vehicles out there on the roads, tearing up the roads. There'd be 3.58 tons per day of smog-forming gases eliminated. There'd be 0.65 tons per day of inhalable particles taken out of the environment, and there would be 20.11 tons per day of carbon monoxide removed by taking these vehicles off the road. and replacing them with bikes. I skipped. As you can also imagine, riding a bicycle is more efficient than walking. It's estimated that it can get you going where you need to be up to 5 times faster. They also did another study where they converted calories into energy, and 100 calories can transport a bike up to 3 miles, whereas 100 calories can only transport a car up to 280 feet. And then it'd also be more efficient in like big cities where you run into traffic jams and things like that. A bicycle will help you get across town a lot faster than if you had to go through traffic. Another thing with the big cities, you have to deal with a lot of noise pollution. Some of the problems associated with noise pollution or stress-related illness, high blood pressure, speech interference, sleep deprivation, loss of productivity, and lastly, noise-induced hearing loss. So again, when you replace that bicycle or replace that vehicle with a bicycle, then you're eliminating a lot of that noise pollution. Again, we're not going to shock anybody here, but there's actually some health benefits to riding a bicycle. Some of those include decreased risk of coronary heart disease. It's going to build your muscle. It's good exercise for people with joint problems. If you've got like knee or ankle problems that prevent you from going out and jogging, then riding a bicycle is a good alternative to that because it's less strain on the joints, so it's a good way for those people with disabilities to get out there and get some exercise. And with that, you're going to burn more calories and boost your metabolism. Again, riding a bicycle is good for your coordination because there's a lot of moving parts going along there. And then it's good for your mental health. Financial savings. Again, one of these studies that I came across, they calculated the average cost of what it would take to maintain a vehicle over the course of a year. And for a standard size car with your fuel, your insurance, your licensing, your fees, you're looking at about $14,000 a year. For an SUV, it's about $2,000 more. You're looking at $16,179 a year. Whereas with if you went out and bought the top of the line bicycle with all the accessories, the first year, the average was about $1,600. Whereas each additional year after that, it's about $350, and that's just the upkeep. That's 2 tune-ups, 2 tires, and 4 inner tubes. And then we're going to look at the versatility of a bicycle. Here in North America, we have a tendency to think of the bicycle as just a recreational or an exercise mode or a piece of equipment, but this video demonstrates a lot of the versatility of the bicycle and how it can be used for so many different things. And again, like I said, North America, we look at it as more like a recreational or an exercise vehicle. But a quick look at some other places around the world, places like Bolivia, they base their life, or their way of life is based off of their livestock, especially like llamas, and they have no telephones or things like that where they can just pick up and call someone in the event of an emergency. And so they use it as a form of communication in an emergency situation. If they have problem with their livestock. That's how they find the town veterinarian and go and get help and bring it back to preserve their way of life. In Rwanda, it's a mode of transportation for their politicians. That's how they get out there to the towns and the cities to get eyes on and see what needs to be done in that town and ways that they can help their citizens. And then in places like Tanzania, they use it, as you saw there, a water truck, they use it to deliver clean drinking water. And yeah.
I'm gonna cover current uses for the bicycle and some of the modern technology really quick, trying to wrap up. I'm gonna talk about some of the modern components. So over here, this is actually a cutaway of what's called a deep V rim, and deep V rims have an added depth. This is normally about 14 millimeters compared to the normal like 5 to 6 millimeter depth of a traditional rim. What this allows is the whir of the spokes that are going around, if you're pedaling faster, causes it causes a bit of resistance with the air, just the natural whirring, almost like a fan blade. So what this does is it makes the rim a little bit more aerodynamic. And in addition to that, it also builds structural integrity compared to classic rims. So I've got some of these on my bike, for example, and I ride down 3rd Street, and there's a ton of like potholes and really gnarly stuff on there. And what happens is whenever I take a big bump on these, they actually stay in true more often than traditional bikes. So the concept of staying in true means how well aligned your wheel is. So basically, these rims allow your bikes to not only be more aerodynamic, but also be a little bit more durable overall. This is a pedal strap. It's also called a foot retention system. This one's made by Holdfast, but this kind of developed in the late 90s, early 2000s. There's several companies that sell them nowadays. Basically, what this allows is for the average user to have better power transfer from the legs, making pedaling more efficient by just simply having this Velcro strap that attaches to your pedal so that you can strap in with your regular tennis shoes rather than having to have those you know, the guys who ride around with like the Lyrica and spandex, and now they have the special shoes and they always have to, you know, click in and stuff like that. This makes it to where you can have the same efficiency but not look as goofy and have more convenience. These are pursuit style handlebars. Sometimes they're called bullhorn handlebars, and this is kind of an adaptation that allows the rider to have a more aerodynamic profile, have a better power transfer, and also allow multiple hand positions that make it great for commuting. So in that they're able to stay forward a little bit more and have a visual on all the stuff that's going around in traffic and stuff like that, making it more comfortable than like an upright riding position. We have disc brakes, which are adapted for mountain bike use primarily. They're mimicked off of technology that's available in cars. And what this allows is, rather than having the classic caliper brake that pinches the bicycle wheel rim itself, you're actually relying on a hydraulic system that clamps down on this pad, making braking more efficient. There's been a variety of other accessories like bike bags, and actually this is a small shot of Levi, who's got a company that, you know, has made jeans in America for a long time, since what was it, like 1885 or something. They've developed an entire line of jeans that's specifically designed for the commuter in mind, so that way the regular bike person who's, you know, riding around daily can have a set of jeans that's specifically adapted for bicycles. So they've got a special strap for the back that holds a U-lock, which means you can lock up your bike safely. They also have this material that's designed to be a little bit more water resistant, so when you're riding in the rain and the elements and stuff like that, you don't get as wet. And then this is just a concept of an integrated shifter, which puts the shifting mechanism right next to the brake, so that way it's not only more aerodynamic, but it's safer, so you don't have to move your hand position while you're riding at high speeds. Increased awareness has been really popular in the last couple of years for ways to get bikes out in the public more safely. So organizations like peopleforbikes.org, it's just kind of an online community that allows for people to share their experiences and also promote and advocate awareness of bikes in urban areas. And then there's also been several cities that have found increased success in bicycle rental programs, where you can rent a bike to tour the city for, you know, sometimes it's like $10 for 2 hours or something like that, or on a daily basis, which is kind of promoted health and wellness throughout the city, as well as giving a really unique view to traveling and transport. concepts have changed in culture as well. There's a concept of alley cat races that have been popularized by the 1990s bicycle messenger style. And what these are like events where groups of friends or bike enthusiasts can kind of sponsor these informal races, and what they often involve is a series of checkpoints that go throughout the city, and basically it's like first one to complete all the stages and get back to the finish line wins. So for example, Sean Martin is a guy who's really involved in starting them up in LA. He's got an organization and a blog that's called Take Over LA, and it's just to kind of promote bicycle awareness. But one of the things that that some places do is they'll do like holiday themed alley cat races. So for example, there's some videos out on YouTube that are pretty funny where they'll do like a holiday race where like stage 1 will be you have to go to the first checkpoint, grab a present. Stage 2, you'll have to go and grab a piece of wrapping paper. Stage 3, you'll have to try to figure out how to ride with the wrapping paper, the present, and a piece of tape. And then stage 5 will be trying to stage 4 and 5 will kind of be wrapping and getting it across the finish line. So this is just kind of a way that people can, get together over bikes and have fun. And this is just an example of a card that was used to promote the event. They normally have independent designers and just kind of get artwork paired with bike culture as well. Cyclocross is a newer event that started from an old concept where basically it's an off-road race that kind of involves getting off of the bike more often. So it's really dexterous, and it's designed to where you actually have to like hop over barriers. And so dismounting and knowing when to ride is kind of a key part of this. And the other cool thing that's come about with more popularity since the 1990s is the concept of bike polo. So teams of 3-on-3 will get together on tennis courts and basketball courts and tennis courts, and basically they'll have track bikes or single speeds, and they'll have these mallets that are made out of it's kind of funny because there's not necessarily a set way of how to make a mallet, but basically what it is, it's an aluminum ski pole and high density little piece of plastic piping, and so they use that with these street Easton or NHL style street hockey balls, and they just have goals set up. And if you YouTube bike polo, you'll see some pretty intense clips of guys going at it with mallets, and they get going pretty fast in a very small area. It's kind of cool. Increased customization, and with all these new components and all these new people riding bikes, there's the option that the individual can build their own frame. So you can go to a frame builder and get a custom steel frame built that matches your body perfectly. And so that means that effectively you would never have to buy a bike again, because you will get a bike that is fit to your body specs. So like the top tube, the distance that it would take to lean over, the pedal efficiency would be customized to your body. And recently, they've been able to adapt a custom carbon fiber process. So we saw with the space elevator how carbon fiber is one of the new technologies that is kind of integrating itself into the consumer market. Bikes have been made out of carbon fiber for the last 10 years or so. And until recently, there hasn't been the ability to really customize it. It was more like a sheet and mold process. So it kind of made it a little bit homogeneous in the market. But nowadays, cyclists can get a custom carbon fiber frame as well for, I think it runs around $6,000, which is kind of pricey. But if you're into that, more power to you. So to summarize, we've covered up the basic history of bicycles, types of bicycles, a global perspective, and current use in modern technology. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Here is the recording. Any bicycle questions? I see that you have a T-shirt with bicycle.
Yes.
And I see in your table here you have something. Do you have to put this in your head, or when you?
Yeah, I actually have I've got a ProTech Classic helmet over here, which is one of the technologies that was developed in the 1970s. It's classically styled with this, it kind of became popular in skate and vert riding and stuff like that. But I added lightning bolts to mine that are reflective, because in bicycle riding, if you add a lightning bolt, it gives you at least plus 10 horsepower. So, yeah. On or off? Yeah, so I just took some basic 3M reflective tape, and it helps me be a little more visible, because some of the streets around Charleston are not as well lit. And that's one of the things that producers of new products are kind of gearing with the commuter in mind. So to where it used to be about how to get the mechanics of the bike right, nowadays it's also how to supplement the rider in a safe manner. So you have better helmets and you have better technologies. There's actually a helmet on the market that has an integrated kind of like Bluetooth feature that can automatically call an emergency contact if it detects a crash. So it's almost like OnStar, but inside a bike helmet, which is kind of cool.
My next question would be for any of you. Why is it historically that they started with the big wheel and the small wheel first and then moved into equal wheels, or what?
I found no real information on that. It was basically a style. They just found that before they had chain and pedal systems, they just made the wheel bigger and it allowed you to accomplish what, having a chain and sprocket to go faster, multi-gears. So they made the wheel bigger to cover more ground, but past that, it was a styling thing.
Can we say, or anybody say, that the technology for bicycles or bikes spilled into cars by any means? Or
yes, it did.
It did?
I didn't add that. But yes, it did.
Okay.
It was
so there are forerunners for the cars.
Four wheels?
Yeah, Forerunner. I mean, they came before the car.
Oh, yeah, Forerunner. Yeah. They definitely were the transition to the car. Adding motors, the motorcycle, was derived from the bicycle as well. It was just kind of the natural progression of things. So, yes, it did influence cars.
Any biking guys or girls? Bicycles. In India, we have many bicycles, right? More than cars? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Please join me in thanking this team.
It's not very comfortable, and it's very hard on your bones. There's no real brakes. There's no safety features at all. It's just dangerous. And anyway, it's got treadle pedals that, as you can see here, you'd put your feet there, and it's kind of like an old-fashioned sewing machine where you just kind of go up and down. And that's what powers the sewing machine. Well, that's how you turn the wheel on this thing. That was around 1840. And as you can see here, there's no pedals or anything. You just sit on it and you kind of run with your feet. Not real comfortable. It did kind of close the gap, though. So people didn't have horses, so they'd use these instead. That was in 1817. So that was the first time we saw a bicycle. Next. All right. The treadle pedals. And this is also considered this picture here is considered a bone crusher bike.
Our presentation, as you can see from our slide and from my shirt, is on bicycles, transportation technology. So we're going to start out with kind of an overview. I guess we'll introduce everyone first. My name's Gabe Shigoda.
I'm Willie.
I'm Wanda K. Robinson.
Jeremy Brown.
And what we're going to be starting out with today is just kind of a basic overview. We're going to talk about the history of the bicycle, different types of bicycles, and then we're going to kind of look at a global perspective of riding, because there's a lot of different applications that people are using these for around the world. And then I'm going to be talking about current uses and some of the modern technology that goes into each bicycle around the world.
Okay, for history, it's kind of interesting. I didn't know anything that was going on with bicycles back then, but apparently the reason the bicycle came about was because of a famine that was created by a volcano. And so horses died, there was no transportation, and so people got creative. And the Draisine, which was, I don't have it on my sheet, was created by, I believe, a German